Alrighty, Lauma is going to be coming very soon. I know that many of you are excited for her. I am as well. We do already have some information or a couple of guides out there for Lauma at the current point. So yes, we know that she's going to be shaping up really nicely. However, there has been a couple of questions regarding Lauma where many of you have been asking which should you invest into Lauma. If you really like her at a C0 level, should you go more onto her C1 or is it going to be her weapon wise? So we'll have a quick video discussing about this today to help you make a better decision. Now this is going to be something I would probably do similar for myself as well, because I will be looking into investing into my Lauma. However, I am also limited on gems, so technically speaking I can't get both C1 or weapon because so many good future characters are coming. Lauma and Flint as well as so many other amazing Not Cry character is coming pretty soon, and I know that many of you are trying to get them. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 25% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point. And by the way, this also applies to PS5 and Xbox user who can place orders through Loot Bar. You can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. And for those who are going for the highest package when topping up, there's also a limited discount options available once every version. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. Now, I've already discussed quite a lot about Lauma on some of my videos, so we're not going to be looking into a specific kit and what she exactly does. That's not the whole point of the video. So we'll jump straight into what her C1 actually do and why it is so interesting. For Lauma C1, technically speaking, whenever Lunar Bloom reaction is triggered in your team, the nearby active character will be recovering their HP equals to 500% of Lauma's EM. Now, generally speaking, we're going to be having a lot of EM built onto Lauma, so we can safely say that whenever we have a C1 Lauma, she is going to be able to help you heal pretty decently well. Other than that, you also have a small boost in exploration during her Spirit Envoy, or basically her deal form. It also reduces the stamina consumed as well as the max duration is increased, so generally it's kind of nice quality of life increase there. But from the look of it, the best value that C1 provides is generally turning Lauma into a healer. While it does look a bit expensive for us to actually just investing into a constellation where it doesn't actually help her deal more damage and just turns her into a better quality of life character by healing your team at first. But why is this so interesting that having Lauma becoming a healer can potentially be really nice, even though we already got so many good healer out there in the game already? And while I say that because first of all, if Lauma has access to healing capability, therefore you can potentially save a healer slot on your team already, but I'm sure many of us are aware of that. However, the more interesting thing is up until this point, if we look into specific Dendro healer themselves, we only have Baiju, and that's a 5-star character, and I don't think many of us has access to Baiju unless you really like him. I don't have Baiju on the account myself, and the only other Dendro healer that we've got is a 4-star Yao Yao. Now, Yao Yao healing isn't bad and it's okay having Yao Yao, but obviously if you want a more invested team, you're probably not going to be always having Yao Yao on your team, right? So considering the fact that Lauma herself is already an amazing character in supporting Dendro Lunar Bloom team, or potentially with her kit a lot of Hyper Bloom team is going to get upgraded quite a lot too. For Lauma to become a healer, that's going to be having quite good benefit when it comes to team building, especially in a Bloom team. Because at that point, you don't really have to worry too much about healer anymore on a Nilou Bloom team, specifically Kokomi, Baiju, and then yes, save a slot on your sub DPS team building as well. So overall, that seems to be a really nice quality of life increase. However, that is more specifically toward a Bloom team. When it comes to Hyper Bloom team themselves, and I do believe that many of us are going to be having Lauma in the Hyper Bloom team as well, but C1 value is going to drop quite a bit bit. First of all, especially with the fact that in Hyper Bloom team, you're not going to be having to deal with a self-inflicting damage as much as Newly Bloom team, because Newly Bloom team has always been notorious for the amount of damage you're doing to yourself, so healing is too much of a requirement. Sometimes in Hyper Bloom team, you can get away without having a specific healer on the team and you will still be fine. But moreover, in Hyper Bloom team themselves, many of the time, the other best supportive character on Hyper Bloom team can also be healing your team as well, where you have Xingqiu, especially Kuki, Shinobu. Those two are generally going to be a nice healer on your Hyper Bloom team, and sometimes you even have both of them on the team. Therefore, it's already a lot of healing capability that it negates the fact that having a Lauma C1 is just a little bit of a redundant that you don't really need too much unless you're tackling really tough content with bosses enemies that deals a lot of damage to you in a single instance. That's where Lauma C1 value is going to be nice. So C1 Lauma is going to be really nice quality of life onto her regardless of the situation, because as long as she can heal, she is welcome in any kind of team. But of course, that does lead us to the question of investment, which is why, especially if at the start you really have to think about whether it's worth it. If you're using her in a lot of Bloom team, maybe her C1 is going to be really nice for you. If you're going to be using her in more of a Hyper Bloom team, then you can probably save for other investment, for example her signature, which is why we're going to be looking at it right now. The Night Weaver's Looking Glass, she's going to be having quite a lot of EM increase, and other than that, whenever the two requirements of she getting the EM is triggered, your nearby party member is going to be getting a whopping 120% Bloom damage increase, 80% Hyper Bloom and Bergian damage increase, and other than that, a 40% Lunar Bloom damage increase. So yes, it is a weapon that is really nice onto Lauma herself, but the most important thing is that is it really that much of a requirement, especially at the start where you have other investment to look into. However, the nice thing about Lauma is that she does have really decent other options for us to look into, especially with the Black Marrow Lantern that is going to be the craftable weapons, where we have a really nice EM increase for the secondary stat, and the passive does give you a 96% Bloom damage increase and a whopping potentially 48% Lunar Bloom damage increase when you are at an R5 cost, so that does take a bit of time, and you also is required to be in Ascended Gleam. So depending on your team build, this might not be able to get the maximum potential, but for a free-to-play weapon that can have this kind of potential, I think it is really good on her starting out without you needing to investing into her too much or getting her weapon. Though the only thing that this weapon is lacking is gonna be not having the increase in Hyper Bloom and Bergian damage. So if you're focusing a bit on Lauma Hyper Bloom team and you are liking to invest into Lauma herself, then technically her signature is gonna yield you quite a bit more value than having a C1 Lauma with a free-to-play weapon on using a Hyper Bloom team. So I think that's a nice difference there. Other than that, we also have the event weapon that is going to be coming in 6.0, where you have energy regen on the secondary side, and technically that is nice because her elemental burst uptime is a requirement on Lauma, and other than that, an R5 level, which I'm pretty sure everyone would, has an extra 200 EM. And talking about other free-to-play options and especially energy regen, we do have Sacrificial Fragment, which is good at increasing EM. Favonius Codex is really good at increasing energy regen for you. So those two 4-star options are generally good for you to give your Lauma, as I'm pretty sure most of you should have these kind of weapons available on your account. Alright, so we just discussed about C1 and Lauma signature. Now here's going to be my advice basically on whether you should be investing into a C1 or Lauma signature, where obviously many of us is going to be having a bit of a limited Primo Gems at the start of a Not Cry. So if you really want Lauma to be a healer, then C1 is definitely something that you can focus in. But again, do remember that the most value teams that are going to be getting off of this is going to be on a Bloom team. If you're not going to be focusing on a Bloom team and more toward a Hyper Bloom composition, then her weapon is generally going to be giving you more value and potentially a bit more saving onto your pool if you are not lucky on getting a Lauma at a C1 level. But then obviously if you're more of a kind of like a maximum free-to-play player, you're having a lot of trouble getting gems already, then honestly I just have to say that the craftable weapons or other 4-star options on her isn't actually too bad. And what we can actually do is we can wait for future 6.1 character that's going to be coming down the line, their beta information, to see if it's whether or not you may like those characters and whether you would like to invest more into them in the future, because that way you can save your Primos gems, not investing too much into Lauma, and potentially diversifying your team comp later on. And whenever Lauma's on her rerun, you can go ahead and invest more into her. And I'm pretty sure that Lauma's going to be having her rerun like 2 or 3 patches down the line, so it's not going to be too far away. Now for me personally, I think I'm probably going to be investing into a C1 Lauma because the craftable weapons is generally really nice on her. I like Lauma being a healer on my team because I do use a lot of Nilu Bloom team especially, and having an extra healer sometimes on the Hyper Bloom team isn't really bad as well. Hopefully I do get lucky, but that's just my opinion. I hope that the video have been helpful to you. If you have any question, leave it down in the comment section and I have some other lovely Genshin players will get to you there. If you are thinking about investing into patch 6.0 for any of the characters you're deciding to swipe, don't forget to check out loot bars. I'm sure they'll be very helpful to you. With that, I wish you a super day and I'll catch you on my next video.